My name is Melanie Painter. I'm the managing editor at Carib News. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're honored to have you here and excited to share some pertinent information with you with regards to your health. As you may know, there have been recent changes to the Medicare Savings Program. Eligibility has expanded for 2023, and you need to know about it. We've been working very hard to help you to continue your investment in your health. That's why we're having this event today, so that you can learn how it affects you and help you get some ideas about how you can benefit and save. So thank you for taking that first step today by showing up. Carib News is the #1 weekly Caribbean American news source outside of the Caribbean. We have been serving the community for over 41 years, and we're proud to continue our tradition of service. Our commitment goes beyond daily news stories. We also partner for opportunities like these to provide relevant information in these ever-changing times. Our hope is that something encourages you to take action on your behalf. We believe that we can't help the community unless we understand what it needs and what works best for its people. After 41 years, it's fair to say we know a thing or two about how things work. I'd like to extend a huge thank you to Healthfirst for its commitment to serving New Yorkers for over 25 years and teaming with us in this effort. A special thank you to Raymond Thornhill and his team, who we've worked diligently with over the past few months to ensure that we are here today. And finally, thank you to Reverend Frank Williams, Senior Pastor here at Wake Eden, for partnering with us. Again, thank you all for being here and welcome. At this time, I'd like to invite Pastor Frank Williams to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, actually. Thank you so much for making the time out in your busy schedules to be here this afternoon for this important Carib News Town Hall. So I want to just begin by welcoming you all to the Wake Eden Community Baptist Church. So glad that you're here with us. We are delighted to host this Carib News Town Hall in partnership with Healthfirst. Our church's relationship with Carib News spans decades. It actually began with our founding pastor, the late Reverend Dr. Samuel G. Simpson, and his friendship with Carl and Faye Rodney. And that friendship has expanded to include my service as pastor of this great church and the Bronx Baptist Church as well, who is represented here. And we have enjoyed a healthy, robust relationship with the Carib News family, not just as an organization, but as people. And we are grateful for that. I do want to acknowledge Carlissa, who is here this afternoon. She and I have been in contact with each other for many years for different things related to Carib News or articles and so forth. I also want to acknowledge Melanie Painter, who introduced me. Thank you for the work that you have done with Sister Maxine in organizing today's event. I also want to acknowledge Miguel Centeno from the Healthfirst team, and also Pastor Philip Faleyi. Okay, there you are. All right, thank you. And the rest of the Healthfirst teams, please forgive me if I don't mention each person's name individually. Here at Wake Eden, our mission is to know the love of Christ, to love the Christ we know, and to serve the people he loves. And we see events like this as our way of serving, one of the ways in which we serve our city, our community, and the people who God loves. And of course, we know that's all of us, right? And so I welcome each of you today for this town hall, and I pray that it will be both informative and fruitful for us and our community. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. There we go. That's what we want to hear. Well, my name is Miguel Centeno. I am the Vice President of Community Engagement for Healthfirst. So thank you so much, Reverend Williams, for allowing us to be here today, and Melanie and the team. We are so grateful for all of you to have taken time to join us today. We know that there are many other things on your to-do list, and yet you have chosen to spend the next couple of hours with us, and we don't take that for granted. So we are most appreciative of that, and I can promise you that the information that we will deliver during these next couple of hours is literally life-changing, life-saving information. And so I am confident that by the time we are done, you will be very happy to have made the decision to join us. So let me tell you a little bit about Healthfirst, who we are, in case you're not familiar with us. So Healthfirst is the largest not-for-profit health insurer in New York. 1.8 million New Yorkers and counting and trust their health care to us. It is a privilege and a responsibility that we take very seriously to look after their health care. And what is very empowering for us is that a majority of those 1.8 million New Yorkers otherwise would not have access to low-cost, high-quality health care. See, we believe fundamentally that someone's zip code should not determine the quality of their health care more than their genetic code. But unfortunately, that is the case today. And so for nearly 30 years, each and every day, we have been doing our work to make sure that all New Yorkers, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, where they live, where their families are from, regardless of all of that, if you choose to make New York your home, we want to make sure that you have access to high-quality, low-cost health care. And again, we have been doing that for 30 years. And so, we're privileged to be able to provide that service and privileged to be able to be here with you today. So let me give you a little bit of a sense of the information that we will be sharing today. We'll be talking about Medicaid recertification. We'll be talking about the Medicare Savings Program. We'll be talking about health tips that are very important to ensure that we stay healthy. And we're also going to be talking about the issue of elder justice and elder abuse. And so the topics of today are fundamentally about empowerment, right? Empowering people with the information that they need in order to make the best decisions for themselves and their families. So let me tell you a little bit about each of those topics. Let's start with Medicaid recertification. And of course, we're going to go into greater detail during the program. Medicaid recertification. So nationwide, over 92 million Americans have some form of Medicaid. 92 million Americans depend on Medicaid for their health care and that of their families. That is a 28% increase over the course of the pandemic. Recent reports indicate that about 18 million of those people, or about 20% of those folks, will lose their coverage at some point because they fail to recertify their eligibility. This is something that we are determined to make sure does not happen. The one thing that we do not want to have happen is that people find out that they no longer have access to health care when they're in the doctor's office. That is not the time to find out that you're no longer covered by health insurance. And so we want to make sure that people are aware that they need to recertify, because folks have not had to recertify during the pandemic. For the last 3 years, people have been automatically renewed as far as their eligibility for Medicaid. That is changing. People will now have to recertify in the same way that they had to prior to the pandemic. But so many folks don't know this. And so we are determined to educate people not only that this is happening, but also about the process, right? So we'll get into that in greater detail today. Medicare Savings Program. Due to recent eligibility changes, income eligibility changes, more seniors qualify for the Medicare Savings Program. What does that mean? It means that eligible Medicare enrollees can save approximately $7,000 a year toward their Medicare health care costs, just by virtue of being enrolled in the Medicare Savings Program. Friends, we know how the cost of everything has gone up. $7,000, additional $7,000 can make all the difference in the world to an individual and his or her family. So that these individuals do not have to make the decision between medication and food, as just one example, right? And so we want to make sure that, again, as many people as possible have access to this program. Our friends at the Medicare Rights Center estimate that about 60% of eligible people are not enrolled in the Medicare Savings Program. This is a program that is available. It is simply a matter of information, right? And that's why sessions like today's are so important. So we'll talk more about that as well. We will also provide incredibly important health tips, health information about different screenings and other tools to help keep you healthy and prevent disease. That is part of what we will be talking about today as well. And also the issue of elder justice and elder abuse. I tell my staff all the time, do not suffer in silence. Unfortunately, too many of our beloved seniors are doing just that. And so we want to address that today as well. And so we have lots of information that we will be sharing with you today. I will ask everyone to do two things. One is not to leave today with any questions whatsoever. If you have a question about any of the things that we're going to cover today, please take full advantage of the fact that we are here today, right? And ask your questions. Please do not leave saying, I wish I would have asked ABC, right? Ask your questions today. That's one. The second thing is that we ask that you share what you are learning today, share it with your family, your friends, your neighbors, right? This is incredibly important information that too few people are receiving, right? And so we want to make sure that as many people as possible have access to this information. And so let me conclude with this. It is not by accident that this town hall is occurring in a church. We are doing our part to be good and faithful servants, to make sure that we are providing this information because we recognize the power in collaborations with faith-based organizations. And so you will be seeing us doing more and more of that. And so again, thank you all so much for taking the time to be with us today. I do want to invite my esteemed colleague. I mentioned that it is not by accident that we are doing this session in a church. I want to ask my esteemed colleague, Reverend Philip Falai, to come and tell you a little bit about our faith-based initiative, and then we'll get into the rest of the program. All right? Thank you very much again, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Grace and peace, everyone. This is the church. This is a Baptist church, right? Amen. Come on, people. This is not a business town hall. We're here for the business of Christ. Okay, if you don't want to do that, everybody, no, on your feet. This is Baptist. Let's get up on your feet. Amen. See? Let's do that for 2 more seconds. I see some people over there, some seniors over there. Great. All right, very good. Now, how do you feel now? Good? Now you can have your seat. That's why I'm a pastor. You see that? Sometimes we take some things for granted. Take some things for granted. Ability to stand up and sit. Sleep and wake up. Right? Reverend? That's what David said. I said, I sleep and I wake up because the Lord is with me. A lot of people want to wake up this morning. They can't. But you sit down here, you make it seem like it's easy. It's not easy. You have to give praise to God. I'm Pastor Philip Fly. I'm the Fitbit manager for Healthfirst. And that is my vice president. Please give him a round of applause. Thank you so much, sir, for making this happen today. We thank you so very much for bringing us here today. We thank you so much. We have a lot of executives are here. Today you're going to hear from them. They're going to be speaking to you. To our Reverend, thank you so very much for having us here again. So I've heard you. You've prayed for us, prayed with us on the phone the first time we came here. But this is the first time we're seeing you face to face, and we can see that you are blessed. And you continue to bless in Jesus' name. Everybody say amen. I just come to you today. I'm just happy where we're here. We see the passion of the church. They said, to know the love of Christ, to love Christ we know, and to serve the people he loves. We are all here to serve. And if you go in the lobby over there, there's something that says, go ye and make what? Only those side. No. Go ye and make what? And make disciples. To do what? To teach. So all our faith-based initiatives is about education. Just to teach. You might not be seeing my VP here every Sunday. You're going to be seeing me every Sunday. It's to teach. We look at during the COVID, in the black and brown community, the first wave claimed over 67% of black and brown people. Why? Because they live one way or the other, they have underlying health issues, diabetes, high blood pressure, and so on and so forth in our own community. But only if we were educated prior to that time, we might be able to save 1 or 2 people. But the education is not there. That's why Healthfirst put it together. We want to work with the faith community because we are the trusted partner in the community. This church has been here for how many years now? 51 years. And the church is not going to leave. This is the community. I want to thank you for having us here because we are making you an ambassador of health and wellness in our community. So we cannot complain anymore. Many faith leaders we have lost because of education. Just 2 weeks ago, sir, we inaugurate Interfaith Advisory Council. Just give us information, intelligence about what is going on in the community, in your churches, because you know much more better. Nobody knows much more better than you. You do. And they're going to give us the information so we can work on it. But you know what happened that very day? 2 of our major faith leaders that are supposed to be there, they have heart attack. But thank God they survived it. So this is all about education. Our initiative is about education. It's a faith come by hearing, sir. Hearing the word of God. This is really church. So it's all about education. So that is what we are doing. We're going to be bringing education into church, into the community, through the church. Today, if we have this forum before this time, this place would have been packed. If we know the value of education when it comes to health and wellness. But it is good. We're great today because we're just taking the information today. But I say, go ye and make disciples. Now you have become ambassador. We are all the disciples of health and wellness. So our community depends on us, and we depend on you. I want to bless you as to go out there to make disciples. That is soul winning. God wants our soul. He said, beloved, I wish you above all things, right? That your soul prosper, that in good health. The Spirit of the Lord lives in us. And our body is the temple of, the body is the temple of what? Temple of Christ. We have the love of Christ, that's our passion. But we have to take care of the temple. If cancer eats the body, the spirit will flee. If we allow diabetes to take over our body, the spirit will flee. If we have heart attack, the spirit will flee. But let's take care of those areas through education. We have to learn. So we are here together. We are all in this together. Thank you again very much for having us here, and God bless you.
Thank you, Reverend Williams. Thank you, Miguel, and thank you, Pastor Philip, for your welcoming words. You know, Miguel shared our agenda with you, but he forgot to mention that we have refreshments, so please stay till the end. At this time, I'd like to introduce Emily Wichilo, Director of Education for the Medicare Rights Center, to do her presentation.
All right. Thank you, Melanie, Reverend Williams, Pastor Phillips, Miguel, Healthfirst. Thank you all for welcoming me into this space. The warmth and the gratitude that I feel, I think, definitely come from how bright and beautiful this space is, and everyone. Thank you for being here. Gonna, shift the tone a little bit from some of the earlier presentations and get into some information that's, a little more dry but extremely important, as Miguel added context for earlier. My name is Emily. I work at a nonprofit called the Medicare Rights Center, and I'll be talking about the Medicare Savings Program today. We're a nonprofit that's based in New York City, but we have a national helpline where we hear from thousands of beneficiaries each year. And the issues and the problems that we hear about on our helpline then go into our public policy work. We have a team in DC that works to strengthen and protect the Medicare program. And we also partner with organizations throughout the city, like Healthfirst, to get information out into the community about programs that can help save you money. So just by way of introduction, there's a program called the Medicare Savings Program, or MSP, you'll hear it called. Last year, the income limits were a certain percentage of the federal poverty limit, and they've gone up a lot in 2023. And this is the result of legislation. The budget was changed. So we're out here today because we estimate that thousands more people are going to be eligible. So what is a Medicare Savings Program? In New York, there are two, which we'll be going over a little bit in the next couple of slides. The main benefit is it pays for your Part B, like boy premium. So if you get your Social Security benefits, you might notice that there's $164 taken out every month. Or maybe if you're not collecting your retirement benefits yet, you get a bill every couple of months and you have to pay for Medicare. We'll be going over the income limits for this program, but if you qualify, you'll get that $164 back. And you'll also be automatically enrolled in a program called Extra Help. And that's where those additional savings come from to get us up to that $7,000. Extra Help is a federal cost assistance program, pays for your prescription drug benefit, the monthly premium that you pay. It lowers your co-payments at the pharmacy, so you only owe a couple of dollars for each refill, things like that. So as I mentioned, Extra Help is a benefit that you get when you get the Medicare Savings Program. So today we have people on site. You can sign up to be helped with enrollment into the Medicare Savings Program, and you'll also get Extra Help as well. So you'll be getting assistance with your drug premium, with the cost at the pharmacy, and your Medicare premium. So here are the income limits for this year. And the program looks at whether you are single, so not married, or if you're married. And if you're married but not living with your spouse, then this program considers you to be a single person. And so this is important because these income limits are very specific, and we want to make sure that you have a good idea of whether or not you're eligible. So you see these two acronyms here, QI and QMB. They're basically just two of the Medicare savings programs. So QI, you'll see, has the higher income limit. For a single person, it's around $2,200 per month. And if you're married and living with your spouse, they look at both of your incomes, and that's around $3,000 per month. The great thing about this program is there's no asset test. So it doesn't look at how much you have in savings or if you have any retirement accounts. It just looks at what you get each month. And that's usually the amount from Social Security. That's most people's income. There's also a program called QMB. It has a slightly lower income limit. And with the QMB program comes some additional cost assistance. And so if your income is below around $1,600 a month as a single person or around $2,200 a month as a couple, you might qualify for both your Medicare premium to be paid, the $164, but also some costs when you go to the doctor. So the thing that I want to emphasize here is even if you're looking at these income limits and you're like, oh, I might be a little bit above them, should I still apply? Should I even bother? We always say yes. There are a lot of different things that Medicare Advice Center counselors can do, Healthfirst counselors, the people that they partner with can do to try and budget your income in certain ways to see if you can qualify. So if you're paying a premium for something else, if you have a dental plan or a drug plan with a very high premium, some of that can be deducted from your income each month to make you eligible to qualify. And so just to emphasize, if you're looking at these income limits and you think you might be a little bit over them, it's still worth it to reach out to Medicare Advice Center, to Healthfirst, and see if you might qualify based on some of the budgeting rules that exist. And so to apply, you can do it yourself if you're feeling very intrepid through the Human Resources Administration. They're an agency in New York that processes these applications. You can contact the Medicare Rights Center. I passed out some cards with our number, but I have more if people would like some. And you can also speak to some of the Healthfirst representatives that are outside for more assistance. So really no wrong door. There are a lot of people out here to help you. Beyond the Medicare Savings Program, Medicare is, as I'm sure many people have experienced, kind of a complicated program sometimes. You get a lot of mail, maybe you get a denial, maybe your friend has one plan and you have another and you want to know which one's better. The Medicare Rights Center can help with a lot of these questions. We provide unbiased counseling. We can kind of tell it to you straight. We're not going to, push you one way or another. So if you have, any questions, concerns, beyond your regular health insurance, if you have Healthfirst, feel free to call the Medicare Rights Center for more assistance. And then we also have a website, medicareinteractive.org. A lot of consumer-friendly information if you want to look things up yourself. So that is my short presentation. Basically, if you think your income was around those income limits, please speak to one of the Healthfirst people here today. We'd love to get you enrolled and saving, thousands of dollars each year. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Emily. Hello, everybody. I just want to say thank you to Pastor Falai and Pastor Williams, who I got to meet, and Ms. Payton for making this possible. I'm so happy when the pastor invites me to these type of presentations, because when I'm in a place like this, I can feel the power of the Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost power. And that carries me throughout the rest of the week. So when we walk out of here, we feel taller, have a spring in my step. So thank you all in this room for inviting us here today to have this opportunity. So we're talking about Medicaid recertification. It's a very important topic that's just happening right now. This month it's happening right now. Some of you who have had Medicaid in the past, or any of the government programs that Healthfirst offers, including the Medicare programs that have dual eligibility, you'd have to recertify every year. You'd have an anniversary date. So each year you had to go back, meet with your enrollment person, talk to them about if any income changes, any family changes, and then you'd realize what plan you're available for, if you're going to stay with your particular plan, and just to renew your insurance. It's ongoing. 3 years ago, because of the pandemic that we all got through, and thank God we're all through it, the government suspended. State of New York suspended, and actually, Joe Biden suspended through PHE, through the public health emergency, the need for folks to have to renew every year. So you were being automatically renewed. So that took away a big responsibility that many of us had, and a big job that we had as a healthcare company, reminding people, getting people to come in and change their insurance. As our VP mentioned, Miguel, earlier, that the last place you want to realize you don't have insurance is when you're at the doctor's office. So I'm here to talk to you about today the importance of recertification and what you need to do to find out to recertify and make sure that yourself, your families, your friends, your neighbors don't go to the doctor and not have health insurance. So there's 5 very important points. The first being, do you know when your recertification renewal date is, or we call it the anniversary date? Do you know when that date is? Number 2, have you changed your phone number, your contact information, or moved your place of residence in the last 3 years since the public health emergency was instated and the auto renewal process was initiated? Are you aware of your personal recertification window of opportunity? So once you realize when your date is, there's a certain time period, and that's what we're in one of those periods right now for July 1st, that you have to set up an appointment to have your recertification completed. The 4th is, we're going to talk about some of the impacts really quick. What are some of the impacts that can occur by not recertifying in time and having a lapse in your coverage? And finally, the most important thing is we want to be advocates. We want to let our friends know, our family know, our neighbors know that this is happening. We as a group can make the Bronx a great healthcare county, a great place. As we know, the Bronx is kind of number 62 in all the counties in New York in terms of healthcare outcomes. It's in places like this, conversations that we're having, that we can turn that around. We're in New York City, the wealthiest, most dynamic, incredible city that's ever existed. And it's really inexplicable that a place like the Bronx with such beautiful people, such beautiful scenery, is the last county in the state when it comes to healthcare. So we're here to work together. That's when we come to the Bronx, it's very special. So we'll talk about number 1. How do you know your recertification date? So if you're a Healthfirst member, anybody here a Healthfirst member by any chance? Oh, hi, thank you. We have these flyers outside. These are for Healthfirst members. Has all this information in the back, whether you're with Medicare or just straight Medicaid, or Essential Plan, or Child Health Plus. You can use this information to initiate your recertification. If not a Healthfirst member, we have this great document from New York State of Health. And it's asking you to text this number. So you will dial 1-866-988-0327, press the text option, and you put in the word START, S-T-A-R-T. And in about 2 minutes, and I usually just pull out my phone and do that, but we'll skip that today. So, and you'll see that in about three minutes, you get a response from the state letting you know that, first of all, if I was on the marketplace and I had my date, they'd let me know when my date is. They'd say, hey, August 1st is your date, so start making plans. Or they'd give you some updates of what's coming up, and they might let you know when your date is in the future and let you know options of where you can go to recertify. So these are very important, and we have these flyers outside, so please, before you leave, you can take it. If you have any questions, we'll be there to answer. So very important first point, you need to know when your recertification date is. Second point, have you moved or changed your number in the last 3 years? Very important. The state is going to reach you by your phone number. So if you text them with a number that they don't have on record, they're going to be sending that information to somewhere, and it's not going to come to you. So you want to make sure that your phone numbers are up to date, and you also want to make sure that your addresses are up to date with the state, or like with Healthfirst, because we're going to be mailing you correspondence. You're going to be getting mail and information in the mail, notices about your recertification date coming. If they don't have the right address, you're not going to receive it, and you're going to miss your recertification date, and we want to avoid that. Very important. So number 3, you know your recertification date. When is my recertification window? So as I said, July 1st, it's starting for so many hundreds of thousands of people in New York. Healthfirst members, we know for sure. So July 1st is your date. Does that mean on July 1st I can go recertify? No. That's why we want to be clear that we understand. If your date to recertify is July 1st, you have between May 16th and June 15th in order to recertify. So if your date is July 1st and you go on May 12th, there's no way we can help you. Your case is not yet uploaded into the system. So you have that 1 month period from May 16th to June 15th. If it's August 1st, say your date, it would be June 16th to July 15th. If it's September 1st, you would have July 16th to August 15th. So you always have that 1 month period in order to go in and initiate your recertification process. If you don't want to go before, because there really won't be, we don't want you to come to our office if you're a Healthfirst member. When you're, you can just come in, we can tell you, well, you're going to have to come back again, or maybe we could do it over the phone. So we want to avoid that. So the more people understand when their anniversary date is, and then the recertification window is that 30-day, more or less, period, 29-day period where you have. If you don't do it, say, July 1st is your date, and you don't get there by June 15th, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, there's a good chance you may have a lapse in coverage. Your insurance won't go into effect on July 1st. It may have a skip a month and then start August 1st. That causes all kinds of issues for you. You'll get bills in the mail. That your provider who you're dealing with is going to be like, wait a minute, I don't see you in our system. Who's going to pay for the bills? It causes kind of a confusion and dissatisfaction across the board. So we really hope that everyone understands the window and tries to get in time to make sure we don't have that lapse. Why don't we want the lapse? Here are some of the things that can happen. If you have a lapse in coverage, you have your disruption of your care. Your continuity of your care will be disrupted. You may have an upcoming medical procedure that's going to be canceled, or disruption of medication access for that month. You might not have, or you might be getting billed for your medication. You'll be receiving unexpected payment and billings that you never received before. You might lose access to your preferred provider, and your appointments may be denied. You could have suspension of home health care services, or suspension of transportation services that some folks have. So, and another important thing that I want to add about this, and why it's so important that we are educated and we have the knowledge. Our Attorney General, Letitia James, recently put out a statement. People are trying to take advantage of this situation because the state is doing a great job promoting recertification, really good job, but it's hard to get all the information. Not everyone's coming to meetings like this and getting the detailed information. And some folks are out there trying to take advantage of folks. They're calling, especially the elderly, who have dual eligibility, Medicare and Medicaid. And they're telling them that, you see the stuff that the state is saying, send me $100 and I'll help you recertify your stuff. If anyone asks you for money, you say no, it's some kind of scam. And tell your friends about that. Here's what Letitia James said. This is a quote. These schemes are maliciously preying on public health insurance enrollees as they navigate the return of renewals for the first time in 3 years. It's despicable that scammers are trying to exploit New Yorkers' need for quality health insurance and uncertainty over ongoing Medicaid coverage. The best tool consumers and families have to combat scams is knowledge. And that's why I am committed to raising this issue. I urge everyone to follow our important tips, and anyone impacted by the scam to contact my office immediately. That's Attorney General Letitia James. So it's serious, and we need each other. So the last point is, be an advocate. We want you to tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbor, tell the gentleman at the corner who makes your coffee. Let everyone know about recertification is starting, that they should know their date, and spread the word, because as a community, we will lift ourselves up. We'll put the Bronx out of that last spot in healthcare outcomes where we should never be. And finally, I would say also for our Medicare products, anyone who is a Healthfirst Medicare member, you also have to renew. And a lot of us would have to go through HRA. But Healthfirst has put in a special program where you could call My Advocate. And that's the number is 1-877-218-5188, and that's Monday through Friday from 9 to 6 p.m. Someone from My Advocate will assist you in renewing your Medicaid component of your Medicare coverage, and you'll have some seamless and have the continuity of care moving forward there. So if there's any questions, we're going to have some of these flyers outside. We'll be outside. Please, any question you might have, we'll be happy to help. If you're a Healthfirst member, we can check you out right now, see when your date is. We might be able to set up an appointment for you today. So thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure here, and I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. That was really, really good information. And just so you know, we'll have a Q&A portion at the end of speakers, so anything anybody wants to ask, you can ask them. At this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Karen Costley, Medical Director of Healthfirst, to present. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. I really do feel like all of us here are blessed and highly favored today. I have a friend who, whenever I say, "How are you doing?" he says, "Blessed and highly favored." And I feel like that today. We're going to talk a little bit about health and wellness this morning. I wanted to see by a show of hands who in the audience has seen a doctor within the last year. Wow, that's actually very encouraging. Very encouraging. Okay, let's talk a little bit about why it's important to see your physician regularly. Cardiovascular disease, we'll talk about the checkups and why you should. Okay, cardiovascular disease and cancer are the leading causes of death in the U.S. In the past year, 1 in 5 deaths have been from heart disease and 1 in 5 deaths have been in cancer. And of course, during the pandemic, we lost over 1 million people to COVID. So we want you to see your physician, not only so that you can be living your best life, but we also want to prevent pain and suffering. Let's talk a little bit about heart disease and how we can prevent it. Exercise and diet. I know we keep talking about it, but it is so important. Exercise, we want you to get at least 30 minutes of exercise daily. And it doesn't have to be aerobics and, la. You could just walk. Walking 30 minutes a day, vacuuming, cleaning your house, anything that gets your heart rate up is going to help your heart. If you smoke, we want you to quit smoking. That's probably one of the easiest ways to cut down on your risk. And there are ways to help with that if you need help with that. We want you to eat a diet that's portion controlled and low in fats. The protein on your plate should not be larger than the size of the back of your hand. So when you get those huge portions of steak or chicken or fish, that is really much more than you should be taking in. Keep that in mind. You want to limit your fat intake. You want to limit your carbohydrate intake. It's also important that if you're taking medicines for diabetes or hypertension or high cholesterol or depression, that you take your medicines consistently. And if you're experiencing a side effect or a problem with the medicine, discuss it with your doctor before stopping the medication. I can't tell you how many times I've had people come to me, I stopped that, I was losing my hair, my legs were swelling. Call me and tell me about it, because there are things that we can do. We don't want you to stop your medication. Whenever you're going to see the doctor, write down the things that are really a priority for you. Because in that 15 to 20 minute period, you're going to forget. And you're going to walk out the door and think, I should have mentioned that I'm having this pain in the back of my knee. Write down the things that are important that you want to be addressed. And you want to make sure that your blood pressure, you know what your blood pressure is, you know what the goal is, you know what your weight is, you know what your target weight is, and that if you've had any lab tests, that you have those results reviewed with you when you're seeing the physician. Let's talk a little bit about cancer. So in 2020 alone, 600,000 people died of cancer. The good news is that over the last 20 years, we've seen cancer deaths decrease by about 27%. We believe that's because we know how to screen, catch early, and treat. Lung cancer, colon cancer, breast cancer, and prostate cancer are some of the leading causes of cancer death. But we can screen for these. We screen for lung cancer for people who are smokers or have smoked over a certain amount of time. We screen them with a low-dose CAT scan, which is an X-ray. We screen for colon cancer with a colonoscopy, which involves a prep, which cleanses your colon, and then inserting a scope inside the colon to look at it. There are other ways to screen for colon cancer that are not as invasive for people at low to moderate risk. But again, have that discussion with your provider to make sure that you're getting screened, because colon cancer, if caught early, can be cured. We use mammograms to screen for breast cancer, and all of the ladies in the audience who have had mammograms know that that is not the most fun experience, but it's important, and if you're over 50, you need to be having that annually. So we want you to make sure that you're asking your doctor about what tests you should be having. Mental health. Your mental health has a huge impact on your overall health. We also know that with the recent pandemic, loneliness and isolation have had a heavy overlay on folks. Community is important. Your church family is important. Sometimes you will need professional help, and there are resources available to you. If you have Healthfirst, we have resources through our insurance program. New York City also has a helpline if you feel that you need help or counseling. Immunizations we'll talk to a little bit later. Let's talk about routine checkups. How often should you see your doctor? So let's start with if you have no chronic health conditions. If you have no chronic health conditions and you're between the ages of 20 to 40, then every 2 to 3 years should be sufficient. If you're between 40 and 50, every 1 to 2 years, and over 50 annually. If you have diabetes, hypertension, arthritis, depression, liver disease, kidney disease, you will need to see your doctor more often, and you will go by whatever the recommendation the doctor is giving you. When you do get your checkup, you want to get your height measured, your weight measured. You'd like to know your BMI, which is calculated based on your height and weight. You want to know your blood pressure, as I mentioned before. Normal blood pressure is 120/80 or less. You want to know your heart rate, and you want to have the screening blood tests that are recommended for your age range. Cholesterol, fasting glucose, or hemoglobin A1C is what we use to check for diabetes. Hepatitis C virus antibody is recommended by the CDC for all adults. And then other screening that's done is for depression, sexually transmitted diseases. There's been an increase in that in recent years. So if you feel that you're at risk, you should ask your doctor for screening tests. Skin survey, if you've noticed any lesions on your skin that are growing or painful or changing, please alert your doc. Cardiovascular risk assessment we've spoken of. And then prenatal care. I see a lot of women in the audience, if your daughters or granddaughters are pregnant, we want them to get into care early. We want them to keep their appointments with their prenatal provider and their postpartum appointments after they've delivered, because we know that morbidity and mortality in the Black community is much higher than where we want it to be. All right. Let's go into cancer screening. Okay, so this slide is a guideline that shows the American Cancer Society's screening recommendations. This slide says 25 to 39 for pap smears, but really it's as soon as a woman becomes sexually active, she should start getting pap smears, and that is often before 25. Between the ages of 40 to 49, we want you to have the breast cancer screening. We want you to do self-breast exams. At least I'd like you to do self-breast exams. There's some authorities that feel that that's not necessary and it leads to unnecessary testing, but I do think that if a woman knows how her breast feels, If something changes or is different, they'll be able to alert their provider. Cervical cancer screening will continue. Colorectal cancer screening, usually starting at age 45, but sooner if you have a family history of colon cancer. If you know, if somebody, a close relative has died at the age of 35 with colon cancer, then you would want to be screened, start your screening at 25. So, have that discussion with your provider. Prostate screening for men, I do see a few men in the audience. Again, a discussion to have with your provider. There are changing recommendations on when this should start and how often it should be given, but particularly in the minority population, it's an important screening test. All right. And then lastly, let's talk about immunizations. Now, there's a lot of information out there about immunizations. I know you've heard a lot of information about the COVID vaccine and flu vaccine and some of the other vaccines. I would ask that you not look to social media for your medical guidance on vaccinations. Speak to a medical professional. You can Google and do your research, but really take your concerns to a physician or a nurse practitioner or a medical professional with your questions. Don't look at Instagram and Facebook, because that is not a source of medical information. All right, I support immunizations. I think they're important. I think they prevent death and disease. So the flu vaccine is given annually between the months of September and March usually. The end of September to October is probably when it's optimal to get it. It's developed every year with the goal is to develop it so that it gives you antibodies to whatever the circulating flu is going to be that season. COVID vaccine, the recent CDC guidelines is that 1 dose of the bivalent mRNA vaccine will bring you up to date. It's available in pharmacies, some health centers, some doctor's offices. So I would encourage you to get that vaccine. Tetanus and diphtheria, that is a vaccine that's given every 10 years. You get your initial series as a child, it's then given every 10 years, or if you get a wound, if you step on a nail, if you cut yourself with any kind of dirty instrument, you would probably get a vaccine for tetanus. Zoster is the vaccine for shingles. It's available for people over the age of 50. It's 2 doses. Again, most doctors' offices don't carry it, but the pharmacies do. And the pneumonia, the pneumococcal vaccine, is also available for people over the age of 65, or if you have a disease which would make you immunosuppressed or susceptible to it. The HPV vaccine is for women under the age of 26 and helps prevent cervical cancer, and it's called the Gardasil 9. I know women in the family are usually ones to take care of all the healthcare needs of the family, your children, your husband, your parents. So I encourage you to schedule your preventive visit, pay attention to your heart health, and get your cancer screenings. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Costley. At this time, I would like to introduce our final presenters for today, Takai Ford, Associate Director of Government Affairs, and Florian Edwards, Senior Director of Protective Services at JASA. Ladies.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone.
It's not morning, it's afternoon now. We've been here a while. So my name is Florian Edwards, and this is my amazing colleague, Takai, and we're from a social services agency by the name of JASA, which is a large social services organization that serves approximately 40,000 older adults every year. We have programs from affordable housing, case management. We have a home care service agency within our program. We have a geriatric mental health service, adult protective services. I could go on and on. We have older adult centers and so forth, but we're a part of the Elder Justice Prevention Program. And I've been a social worker for about 20 years. And when I was going to school, they talked about elder abuse, but a little bit. And they always said the big bad person that everyone has to look out for, including social workers and people, were the home attendant. So I started to do my work and do my job, and I realized that the person that people really need to be afraid of and really look at are the family members. And that really broke my heart, because I started to work with older adults and realized that they were being abused by their children, their grandchildren, their nieces and nephew, or a trusted other who could be a caregiver or someone, and that really opened up my eyes. So when we're talking about elder abuse, you have to know what elder abuse is. So elder abuse is any victimization of a person who's over the age of 60. And there's different types of elder abuse. It could be one single act, or it could be a series of events that take place over the years. And so when we're talking about elder abuse, it could be emotional abuse. This is where somebody could be calling you names, psychological abuse, verbal abuse, calling you names, putting you down, making you feel less than, saying very insulting things like, oh, you're too old, I don't even want to hear your opinion or what you have to say. It could be financial abuse, which is the biggest one that we see. And I'm going to tell you a story. We had a woman who was living with her daughter, and her property in Brooklyn was worth $1.5 million. I see my little one coming. I apologize. She heard my voice. You could have a seat. So her home was worth $1.5 million. Zozo. You could go get her, please. And her daughter had her signed over the home for $1.50. So you could imagine the devastation that this woman worked her whole life, lived in her home, established a community in her home, and then essentially her home almost went into foreclosure. She had to try to get the home back, and our agency was able to help her. So we see things like this every day. We see people who have been living in their apartments for 20, 30 years, paying their rent, and all of a sudden they're facing eviction. What happened? Son moved in, stole their social security check, or said, Mom, I got it, I'm gonna pay the landlord every month. What happened? Gave them the money, they never paid it, and all of a sudden they're facing homelessness. We see this all the time. We see people with turn-off notices from Con Edison, National Grid, no lights, no gas, no electricity. We found people with no food in their home, right? So these are some of the type of things that happen. And we also have neglect, and sometimes that could be neglect where someone is over-medicating the older adult, because if they over-medicate them, then they could keep them sleepy, keep them confused, keep them not understanding what's going on, or further impact their medical health so that they could move along, if you understand what I mean, faster. So we've had people who, for example, needed cancer treatment, needed things, and the family said, oh, I don't know anything about it, I'm not doing anything, and the person continuously goes into the hospital. And that's not good, right? Numerous hospital stays exposes you to more infection, other things like that. It's just not good. So we see things like this all the time, or not even giving someone adequate food to eat. So we have physical abuse, which is pretty obvious. People could see it for the most part, where someone may punch somebody, push somebody, slap someone, bite someone, pull their hair. But physical abuse could be many different forms. And the last one that we see, and people would think, oh, never in my family or with someone, is sexual abuse. So we've had situations where people are exposing themselves to older adults, coercing them, forcing them into sexual acts. We always, every time we have someone go to the doctor, we say, please screen them for a STI. And sometimes even the doctor's like, but this woman's 87. And we're like, well, screen them anyway. And we found that maybe they had a sexually transmitted disease. How did that happen if the person is homebound, cannot speak, right? How did this happen? So things like this do happen in our community. So that's what we're here to talk about. Go flip. Yeah, I got it. Okay, thank you so much. I'm gonna get her now.
I know Zoe's more entertaining, and she's too cute, so I totally understand why she stole the show. So I wanted to give this graphic here, and we're talking about elder abuse and the facts, right? So 3 to 12% of older adults experience abuse every year, right? And as you see, one individual is highlighted very dark and the other are green, so it's 1 in 24 are reported. Now, that's just reporting. And why is only 1 in 24 reported is based upon the relationships and the victimization that older adults experience. Because 2/3 of the abusers are usually adult children or spouses or people who we love every day. And I know Healthfirst said I would be talking to a whole bunch of older adults today, but no one in the audience looks over the age of 40. So take on this information and pass it along, okay? Give yourself a round of applause for looking good, okay? Right? And we consider, as Florian said, older adults being 60 plus or older, right? Now, why would it be underreported? Because these are people and individuals that we love. These are our sons, our daughters, our grandchildren, our great nieces, our great nephews. And usually older adults is from an unmet need that they're also experiencing, right? When abuse is happening and it's financial abuse, it's because that young person may not be able to find a job, right? That young person may be having their own traumas and experience their own victimizations and then become the perpetrators of abuse. Now, that doesn't mean it makes it right. It just makes it harder to combat it and overcome it and want to report it because these are people that we love and we understand their experiences. So some of the consequences of abuse and elder abuse are the psychological disorders that we're talked about today too, right? Mental health is very important, but when someone's being abused, usually they are isolated and they can suffer from anxiety and depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. And similarly, where their everyday routine experiences shifts and change. Older adults have a much higher rates of depression than those who are not experiencing any form of abuse and have a higher risk of death based upon their abuse and victimization as well. And the facts of underreporting are because, like I said, are because of those who we love and who they're experiencing, but also because of the stigma behind abuse and the societal factors that we endure. So, one of the things that we did take a look at are the failures to train community contacts and gatekeepers, right? So that's why we're here, right? To educate you on the issues of elder abuse and why it's important and why you need to know the signs and symptoms because you can save a life, right? And also, one of the other factors is that there was definitely an underrepresentation or marginalization of communities that are still not being adequately reached out to and served. So a part of me being a part of the Elder Abuse Program, I am a part of a summit. It's called the New York State Elder Abuse Summit. And COVID took a lot from us, but it also gave us one thing, and it was time to reflect, right? Understand what we're doing in the world, what our purpose is, and how we go about it. And elder abuse has been prevalent for a very long time, but how we address it has shifted and changed throughout the years. So throughout the pandemic, the New York State and Office of Victim Services and Office of the Aging and Lifespan came together to say, how can we serve older adults that are experiencing elder abuse and meet them where they need and be person-centered? So one of the things that they had to understand were underserved populations, right? And an underserved population are communities that are members of a minority population or individuals who have experienced health disparities or people who have faced barriers accessing victim services that include populations that are underserved. So they looked at six different categories of populations throughout this summit. And I was one of the speakers that represented the Black and African American community. Through that, we did webinars, workshops, and plenary sessions and focus groups. The webinars, I was able to represent African American communities and talk about the systemic racial issues that have occurred, right? The access, the inability to access services in their communities, as well as the way that it has been approached of either choosing to reach out to law enforcement versus trying a holistic approach. As my example before, right? A younger person may be experiencing their own traumas and becoming the perpetrator. So if we help that young person, they're least likely to abuse an older adult. So, and we also held focus groups as well, which because we wanted to know, although we are educated in what the signs and symptoms are, we are not the voices and the gatekeepers of our communities, right? Wake Eden Church is a community. You guys, you all and your voices speak louder, and you know what you all need to see and want and deserve in this community. And no one can share that light better than you all. So that is one of the reasons why we're here. Not only to educate you, but for you all to educate us on what we need to do moving forward. So I know that you guys got a lot of information, and that has been coming about taking care of your health, taking care of making sure that your insurance is in place, that you know your rights as a Medicare or Medicaid participant, but as well, we are gatekeepers of everyone in our communities, and so if there is something that we could do better, we are here to learn. We are not here just to give, we are also here to receive. And so the trends and recommendations from our first set of focus groups, this is what was noticed, right? That people didn't feel safe to talk to providers, there's no mandated reporting aspect of elder abuse. And one key takeaway was that people go to who they trust, and usually it's their faith-based congregation and leaders, right? You trust your pastor, you come to church, you could have been anywhere today and you chose to be here because you knew it was important. This is a safe space in which you trust, to which why we are here. Right? We want to meet the community where you are, and as well let you lead. We're here giving all this information to share because knowledge is key, and it's the one thing this world can never take from you. So out of the summit and phase 2, there were recommendations of how direct services should be implemented, outreach and prevention, as well as legislation and policy. There is no state mandated for reporting elder abuse. So why is it key and crucial to have your voices heard and understand it? Because you are the gatekeepers of your community, and we need you to do this work, right? So these are some of the things that we would like to do together, right? One, educating you on the signs, right? Creating culturally validating practices, right? And building relationships with you all. Including you in the decision making, right? Like I said, no one are experts of your lives better than you are. And advocating about the historical trauma and intersectionalities to combat elder abuse, right? And treat every person individual, right? We all are unique in our own ways. We all have similarities, and to build trusting relationships and foundations, we all have to hear each other out and understand. This is some contact information about your local elder abuse prevention center that's located in the Bronx. We have a table outside where we're providing access and resources to not only our elder abuse program, but as well as our older adult centers. We have about 6 located in the Bronx. We're throughout New York City, as Florian has mentioned, but we have 6. Not only can they help with recertification for Medicaid, right, and answering your questions and getting you in contact with Medicare rights, they also can give you information about home care. There's meals provided and different activities as well. I put our closest location, which is our Bay Eden Older Adult Center, and we try not to use the word seniors anymore. It's older adults, so it's very inclusive, and I will encourage you all to take a look. And we know, understanding that we are currently working on developing some more educational workshops and focus groups, and we would love to hear from you all about what respect looks like to you, what we can do when we are implementing elder abuse. If that means showing up every Saturday to talk about it, and that's what we need to do, we need to hear from you all. So I thank you all for your time. And Florian has one more thing that she would like to introduce, and I will try to keep Zoe distracted for the 30 seconds while she comes up, but I don't think I'll be successful.
Thank you. So what I wanted to just touch base on, I think Gilberto spoke about it eloquently in his presentation, is that please be advised, and I'm just telling you this, I know I spoke a lot about the family members and things and trusted others, but please be mindful. I've been working specifically in elder abuse for about 10, 12 years, and I spoke to my mom about it every time. I told her about my work, what was happening, and she was victimized. She was defrauded, right? So you think about, I'm doing the work, I'm telling her about it, and it happened to her, and I share that story because the way she got scammed was the phone kept ringing constantly constantly, constantly. And one day she said to the person that kept calling her, "God bless you," and hung up. And that was the hook that he used to then talk to her and befriend her, right? And say, "Oh, let's talk about the Lord and let's talk about these things." And then he said, "Oh, and by the way, don't tell your daughter what we're talking about. Anytime somebody tells you anything like that, to keep it a secret, secrets kill, okay? Anytime someone says don't tell anyone, is because something is wrong." He said, "Don't tell your daughter, and by the way, I'm gonna give you money to win the lottery, but you need to send me money." And she goes, "I'm gonna win $1 million. I have my granddaughter now, I'm gonna win a car." She doesn't drive. She's never had a license, right? But she believed them, and they kept praying together, praying together. She sent them money. I went to the home one day, saw this packet. "Mom, what is this?" And she looked at me like, uh-oh, I got busted, because she wasn't expecting me. And that's what happened to her. So just be careful of anyone you speak to on the phone, anyone that's asking you to send them money. As Gilberto said, is a scam. Social Security will never call you. The IRS will never call you, right? So if anyone is calling you and saying that, somebody says, "I'm calling from Con Edison," thank you. You call Con Edison yourself and check and verify. Don't send your money to anyone. We have a lot of scams now where people are saying, "Grandma, Grandpa, I'm in jail now and I need you to come help me. Don't tell anyone, send me money." And people panic, okay? My daughter is 4. If someone says she's in jail, she could be right next to the room she's sending the money, because she's not thinking. She's thinking with her heart rather than with her mind, right? So just be careful, be mindful. I just wanted to say that, just to be careful of who you're speaking to, the information that you're giving, and that's all I wanted to end on today. So thank you so much for having us. God bless you all, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Okay, we have come to the end of today's presentations. Thank you to all our presenters. Vital information was shared today, and there is much to unwrap, but the experts are here to provide support. If you have questions at this time, we will be taking them all, and I hope you have many.
And it's to Dr. Costley. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I am from a family that has GI issues, GI malignancies. And someone in my family was just diagnosed with colon cancer. Now, you did mention that as one of the conditions that we should be screening for. What I've heard about a DNA test that needs to be done. Can you explain that to everyone, and whether or not I need to get that test done? Thank you.
Sure. So there is a test called the Cologuard test, and there's another test called the Colo Advantage, where it allows you to collect stool, and then the stool is checked for DNA that is present in certain cancers. That test is really limited to people who are at low to moderate risk for colon cancer. If you have a close family relative, and usually that's, we say, a mother or father or sister, we would really want you screened with a colonoscopy. So that's the discussion you need to have with your provider, with your physician, about what the optimal test would be for you, given that you have a family history of malignancy, GI malignancy. But there is a test that can be done at home with you collecting stool, not for high-risk patients, though. Okay, sure. Any other questions?
My grandmother was her early diagnosis saved her life for colon cancer, and I, under the age of 40, get screened because of the closeness of it. And a lot of people, especially within the Caribbean and African Americans, suffer from GIs because of how we eat.
Exactly.
Right? We eat what we were brought up with, right? As we're talking about the transatlantic slavery, right? We were given the scraps as slaves, and so we made something out of nothing. But are very harmful to our bodies and our intestines, although they taste so good, right? But, and being aware of those things, we should be very, very conscious of making sure that our stomachs and our intestines and our colons are checked, right? So with history or not, just be mindful it is what we put in our bodies as well. So I just wanted to add that.
Costly, yeah. You mentioned about shingles vaccine. I think the age range was 50.
Mm-hmm.
Is it mandatory to have that if you didn't have chicken pox?
Good question. It is recommended because I didn't have overt chicken pox. Okay, my sister, my brother had chicken pox. I didn't develop any skin lesions, but when I tested for antibodies, I have antibodies, which means it's in my body. If you have been exposed to chicken pox, it's already in your system. So it is recommended that you get it to prevent shingles. And shingles is a very painful, I mean, if you've seen, it can be so debilitating. So yes, even if you haven't had active chicken pox with the lesions, we would recommend you getting the vaccine. But have the discussion with your physician. I don't want this to bypass having that discussion with your doctor. Sure. Sure.
I'm not adding medical advice, but I just want to add that the shingles vaccine, I think people have the stereotype that it used to be really expensive under Medicare, but starting this year, vaccines covered by your drug plan are all going to be $0 at the pharmacy. So the shingles vaccine, there are 2 of them, as was mentioned, and they're $0. So you can go to the pharmacy, get them, and not have to worry about that cost that you might have had to in the past.
I have straight Medicare, and I just wanted to know do you have to be in a specific salary range to qualify for Healthfirst? I don't think this was mentioned.
Depending on your income will dictate. We have different plans. We have dual eligible plans, which based on and we're talking about the MSP, which is really a major topic today, that has the window to qualify has really been expanded this year, which is great news. But we do have other Medicare programs that are not dual. So you would still be responsible for the premium pay, or have that, the Medicare covers 80%, that you have to have a supplemental kind of, and that's where the managed care program comes in. It provides that supplemental care, which would also include your drug benefit as too, your Part D benefit as well. If you just had regular Medicare without joining a plan like that, you'd have to get on your own a supplemental program, like you see sometimes with ARP offers these kind of programs, and then also get your Part D for the medication as well. So joining a plan like Healthfirst through the Medicare Advantage program, you would still, if you didn't qualify for the dual or the Medicaid part based on your income, which is ideal, so you should definitely check that out today to see if you qualify with the new MSP screenings, because then that covers all those other extra costs, your co-pays, your premium payments, etc. But to your question with Healthfirst, no, whatever your income is, there is a plan that would fit you ideally, that best serves your needs, and there would be a representative that could go through that with you. But I think today is a great day for you to learn about this MSP opportunity with the Medicare Savings Plan, because it may help you eliminate those costs that you would have normally, the extra 20% and some of those supplemental costs.
To add to that, Healthfirst has took the extra initiative step to hire in contract with an SRA. They're called Senior Retention Advocates, and they, regardless to whatever plan you have, they still can help you. This is not just a Healthfirst effort, it is an effort for Medicare totally. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware of that as well. Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Costley, I have a question for you. You mentioned earlier throughout your presentation about preparing for your doctor's visit. I want to know if Healthfirst go about into the community and educate the community in regards to that. So this way, when they go into their appointments, they don't feel like their doctors can brush them off for a quick second when they should be there for half an hour talking with their doctor about their situation. That's one. Two, I want to also find out from the representative from Healthfirst if they do, for example, seniors who cannot come into the facilities for recertification, if they do virtual visits, how are the documents uploaded, you know, all of that good stuff. Can you talk to us about that? Thank you.
Very good questions. So we are a plan that is very much focused on what makes our provider offices run smoother and more able to serve the members in the community. And there are all kind of pressures on physicians' offices and health centers, as you can imagine. They're not, they also have to pay the bills and pay the salaries. And most physicians' offices book patients every 15 to 20 minutes. So there is a limited amount of time. What we do, though, is we do try to encourage our members to prioritize their needs so that when they get to the doctor, their needs are being addressed. But we also work on the side of the physicians' offices to say, how can we make your life smoother so that you can spend more time with the members and that they're not challenges that you are dealing with when you're seeing our members. That's not going to, there's not going to be an easy fix for that because, as I said, with those appointments that are scheduled, there's a limited amount of time to address issues. But we do have resources within our plan. We have social workers, we have care managers who are dealing with some of our sicker patients who have been hospitalized and discharged from the hospital. We have some physical therapy vendors that we're working with. So there are solutions all around. But whatever plan you're involved in, make sure that you're accessing all of the resources available to you. And the second question was about homebound, right? Homebound members and whether they can get their recertification. Oh, yes. Sure.
Does Healthfirst provide their patients with, because I do know the Bronx is dead last 62 for like 100 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And still is today, which is really sad.
It really is.
There are times when community residents visit their doctor's appointment. Oh, your cholesterol is high, your blood pressure is high, it's not coming down. I don't know if it's your practice or the organization practices to, have you ever walked around the community to see what's there for the patients that you have treated, and how do Healthfirst assist their doctors in doing that? Because
we actually have a clinical partnerships team that has weekly meetings with all physician practices that are enrolled with the Healthfirst product, where we do education and we also hear what their issues are. As far as walking around, I won't say we do that regularly, but if we get a complaint or if somebody has a real concern, a member calls in with a real concern, we will go out to the office and evaluate the situation. But it's not common practice for us to go to each practice and see what's happening. But we are very much in touch with the physician practices, the staff at the front desk, and if we hear any issues that our members are facing when they're getting into the office, we address those directly.
Yes, and just to give a little back into that, we do have a DSC team, which is Delivery System Engagement Team, that works hand in hand with our providers. Additional to that, we do conferences. We call it CME, Continuing Medical Education Training. There's different programmings we also do to help increase the members' experience with our doctors. So we do a lot of hands-on education with our providers on the ground level for our community docs that are working directly in the community as well. Thank you.
Add that JASA definitely paid attention to older adults, specifically in health services, and established a couple of peer support programs for chronic disease management located in the Bronx, as well as health services partnering up with Montefiore Hospital. We have educational presentations from Healthfirst, as well as other insurance providers and health insurance outreach programs, because we understand wellness starts with the mind as well as the body, and education and support of peers, right? So if someone who is diabetic can support someone who's now recently diagnosed with diabetes better than someone who doesn't have that. And we realize that that model has worked, and that model has started in the Bronx. So we do have some information about that, as well as our older adult centers, right? They are open Monday through Friday, usually from 9 to 5, with various activities, including exercise, right? They love the yoga classes, and you get to choose which activities you would like to participate in. But they do blood pressure screenings, they do some health screenings as well at these locations. And if you have information related to your insurance, your current insurance enrollment stuff, they can navigate that information for you and help you get situated with the appropriate parties that you need to. So I encourage, even if it's not you, but anyone over the age of 60 that's an older adult that's living in the Bronx, we will have a heavy presence there. We have 6 older adult centers throughout this borough, right? We want to come off of that number 62, did you say? On that list, right? We want to be higher than that. So that's why health service programs for JASA started here in the Bronx.
So we'll talk about that after.
I just want to add a few things. Oh.
You had a question about how folks who are homebound might get recertification information. Well, if they're a Healthfirst member, we have internally, with our own members, a number of different programs where they're being, correspondence is being sent to their house. They're having SMS texts being sent. There's a whole series. They're getting multiple phone calls, just reminding them that this is coming. And I can speak for our Healthfirst homebound members. We do have our nurses that visit them and do assessments, and they are also timing these along with their, they're seeing when our patients' recertification date is and reaching out to them intentionally to let them know. Now, for folks who aren't our members, we're trying to do meetings like this, working with faith-based organizations like Wake Eden. We have a big town hall next in a few weeks in Claremont here in the Bronx. We're going to be addressing, so we're just getting the word out there. And as I mentioned, we're depending on you. You're here today, which is a beautiful thing. Thank you. That you're here for the information. Any information that you've been able to get today, please spread it to as many people as you can, because we're trying to reach everyone, and we're hoping that these kind of forums, we want to amplify the message. We're hoping that every person in this room becomes an advocate and will take this message and just spread it out throughout the community.
Thanks, Kid. I just want to ask a few things. I know you have more questions to ask. My voice is different now. See? All right. So, because I'm here. I wish everyone here could be Healthfirst member. You see how robust Healthfirst is now? We have a lot of information, a lot of resources. And that's why we're going to churches, mosques, because this is where we can meet all our people. We be hyper-local. That's what we mean by hyper-local. We just want to go inside the community like we're here now. And we are not just here for an event. So we're going to be working with the churches from time to time, probably every other month. We come to church. Any issues you have, any concerns you have, whatever you want us to do, we will bring it down here. We're not asking you to come, but we are bringing all the programs down here. Under the faith-based, we have cancer screening. We have a whole bunch of it. Diabetes workshop, which is 6 weeks, where we sit down, we have a conversation. Then you talk about seeing your doctors, what you should be doing with your doctors. That is part of our program. So that's why we say we are partnering with the community through the faith-based, because we say now, this church has been here for 51 years. So there's nothing you can compare to that. So we are going to rely on this church and any other church just to be able to get all these resources and information to the community.
Also, if you like, you can share about your experience with the workshop that you were able to take at Healthfirst at one time, just the diabetes training that we talked about. Yeah, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but she actually came to our office to do a training with, now that your team is leading, it's a health initiative where we trained community ambassadors and leaders to get long-term diabetes management training. She was one of a graduate of the program, so great. So, the whole idea of that is to, like you said, amplify the message, but also you can be an ambassador where you can help the people of your church or your community, and they can learn what you've learned through those experiences in those classes. So this is the seriousness that Health First takes when it comes to educating our community. Thank you.
Just a quick question. Earlier, I think it was mentioned that Healthfirst is the largest nonprofit provider for health services in the city. And I wanted to know, a little bit more just about that. Like, how does that differ from other providers who are not-for-profit organizations? How does that impact funding, sustainability, costs to consumers, or to those who are members of the organization? Yeah, just a little bit more about that whole nonprofit sector in the area of healthcare services. That'd be great.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that question. There is a significant difference between a Healthfirst being a not-for-profit health insurer versus some of our for-profit counterparts. And I know this from personal experience because I used to work for one of those for-profit organizations prior. So what makes us fundamentally different is that we are literally owned by the major hospital systems in New York. So we are not owned by shareholders. We're owned by the hospital systems. And so literally what we do on a regular basis is that we return what's called excess medical revenue and actually return that, invest that into the healthcare system. We actually pay our hospital sponsors to take better care of our members. So whereas a for-profit organization gives its excess revenue, i.e. profits, to their shareholders, we're making the investment into the healthcare system. And that fundamentally changes the impact that we can have to create more equitable outcomes for our members. And so that is a fundamental difference between a not-for-profit organization like ours versus our for-profit competitors.
Does that change the pricing structure for consumers, your sustainability? How does that impact any of that? Does that do anything?
Yeah.
Does it help it? Does it hurt it?
Yeah, so the products that we offer are through government-sponsored programs. And so, again, based on eligibility rules that the government may set, we have many products that are either no cost or very low cost. So, we have a variety of options that fit people's needs, right? One of the things that we're very focused on as an organization is right member, right plan, right? So we want to make sure that based on your specific needs, we connect that individual with a plan that best fits their overall healthcare needs.
Do you provide services to small businesses for their employees, or is it individuals?
Yeah, we have limited offerings for small businesses. It is mostly today for individuals. Right? Yeah.
Did you mention earlier in your presentation about the nonprofit? Did you mention in your presentation that detail about how you differ from the for-profit organizations? Did you mention that?
I did not. I did not today.
I
do on other occasions.
That's really important information.
Yeah.
That should be included in your. If you normally do, please continue to include that, because that sounds really sounds like good information to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Typically, based on the time that's available, right, and the things that we're looking to cover, we'll either include it, but typically we do. So I really appreciate your question. Yeah. And let me also say one of the things that has clearly been on display today is the power of partnership, right? And so you've been hearing about the resources that Healthfirst makes available for our members, and they are substantial. But we also recognize that given the scope of the challenges that our communities are facing, we may not have all of the answers ourselves. And so we'll bring in our valued partners like Carib News, like Wake Eden Baptist Church, like Medicare Rights Center, like JASA, right? So that together, holistically, we can address the challenges together that the community is facing, right? Because at the end of the day, we're about championing health equity, right? We're champions for fairness. We're champions for making sure that, as I mentioned before, it doesn't matter the zip code, where you live, right? I'm born and raised in the Bronx myself, right? So I get it, all right? The challenges that people face not having access to resources that other people have access to. We fundamentally believe that that is not fair, and we fight for that each and every day to make sure that everyone has access to low-cost, high-quality health care.
Hello. Sorry. I'm a city retiree, and when I was getting my papers ready for retirement, I was told I have to apply for Medicare and also Medicare. With Medicare, I will have a secondary insurance. So I have Medicare, and I seem to have two secondary insurances because I have Emblem and GHI. So how I do not pay any monthly dues, and I get my medication from my union with paying 20%. Only thing is my medication is very expensive, and my 20% is a lot. So what is the difference with the Healthfirst and the Medicare? Is the Healthfirst the secondary insurance from the person that have Medicare?
I am not a Medicare expert, and so I don't want to, but I do know that yes, there is secondary insurance, and I believe if you're with Healthfirst, if you have were you in a union when you work for the city, and you're still getting coverage through the union, so that becomes your primary. So Healthfirst would be secondary to that. But if you were to say, depending on your income, take the MSP screening and see if you qualify for a Medicare savings plan, that might be a great option for you as well. If you were to qualify with the new, the heightening of the window where you can qualify depending on your income, and I'm sure you might have a pension through your years working with the union, and you're getting that in. If you can check again, it may behoove you to join Healthfirst, get a dual eligible plan, and it will cover a lot of those costs that you're currently having, the 20%, et cetera. But it's such a one person. You'd have to meet with a Medicare expert. They'd have to talk to you about all the different variables in your. I wouldn't want to give you any advice without actually having someone sit with you and give you real detailed information. Each person's case is so unique. So to give a general statement wouldn't be fair. I think I can give you my number, and we'll definitely set up a call where we can give you the information. Someone can meet with you.
Okay, thank you.
For sure. Thank you.
So I wanted to give a personal experience. My grandfather, God rest his soul, he had Alzheimer's, and he was a city employee, and was paying a lot for his medications and his premium. And it was quite confusing. But one of the things that we were able to do with the help of JASA and social workers was to navigate that system, right? Because he wasn't in union. He had like 4 different cards. It was the Medicare card, it was his SHIP card, it was his other cards. And I was like, which one is for which? We'll go to the doctor, I'm like, here, just spread them out. Whichever one is for you, you take, right? And so having it all collectively under one and understanding that was easier to navigate, because the card is already, it's like one card is already in another card, even though they're two separate cards. And so once someone just blatantly just explained that to me, it was easier to understand, like, okay, I don't have to walk around with all three. They are duly into this card because he is in a plan. He's in a specific plan. So I just wanted to share, you know, a lot of times case managers and social workers are very, 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 very educated on this and can help you navigate it year to year.
Yeah, thank you so much for providing the real life context. There are a lot of cards. If you are a city employee, I believe, the city or your union pays for your Medicare premium. So some of the information about the Medicare Savings Program may not be as relevant for you personally, but maybe a friend. The second is the emblem and GHI that you have is secondary. So your original Medicare, the red, white, and blue card, that kind of pays first. That's Medicare through the federal government. Emblem/GHI is secondary. The Healthfirst plans and the other plans that you might see advertised are maybe a little less relevant if you have city benefits, because you have kind of a specific plan that was designed for you and given to you by the union. And if you drop it, you kind of lose other benefits as well. And so it's usually a good idea to stay in that. But the Healthfirst plans or other ones that other people have access to do provide one card. That's all your benefits, your doctor, your hospital, your drugs, and the costs are going to be different depending on which plan you have. And so there's original Medicare, which a lot of city retirees have. That's the red, white, and blue card through the federal government. But then there are the Medicare Advantage plans like Healthfirst, United Healthcare, Humana, that you can choose to administer all of your Medicare benefits, and they, you know, can tend to have lower costs or additional benefits. And, you know, I'm sure any of the Healthfirst people here will be happy to tell you about their products. Yeah, they have a lot of options for people with Medicare.
Before we continue, I just want to announce that we're going to take one more question, and I know everybody has a lot of questions, but we do want to respect pastor's time and the time that we've been given to use the church. We also have refreshments upstairs, so we can take our questions upstairs, and the speakers will be on hand to answer for you. We'll take one question at the back, and then.
My name is Sadie Campbell from an organization called Jamaica Progressive League. I have a question. This, of course, you know, is a immigrant community, okay, predominantly. And the problem is not the immigrant status, but that the undocumented that we have in this, this community. And with a lot of mental health issues, you know, feeding from that. Is there anything that Healthfirst have consider participating in any kind of joint work assistance with how we can overcome some of this to get us from the 62 to 62, the bottom of the list of health outcomes? Is that clear? Did you understand?
Yeah, so I can give you an example of something we're doing. We're, as I mentioned, on the 24th, we're doing this town hall here in the Bronx, where we're inviting providers, community leaders, folks to come in, and we're talking about colonoscopies now. I am a colon cancer survivor. A colonoscopy saved my life. So our VP asked, I have some background in storytelling, et cetera, and he said, why don't we take your skills and put something together we can present? So on that date, we're putting together a little play that's about 10 or 15 minutes long about a family who's trying to get their father to get a colonoscopy. So we do know that a lot of men, there's a stigma attached to the process. We got a little explanation about it could be a little invasive when you have the actual colonoscopy procedure. But like I said, a colonoscopy saved my life, and that we put this little show together so that we can present that to the audience. They can get that kind of feeling, hear the story, hopefully affect them with the story, so that when our doctor, Dr. Armajor or Dr. Costley, can get up on stage and talk about the more clinical information, people will be more engaged and maybe be ready to accept and understand it a little better. But that is one of the cases. We're out there every day, Miss, getting out there, spreading the word, trying to find more ways, innovative ways to get the message out to the folks so that they understand. For instance, preventive care. How we're going to get the Bronx out of that number 62 spot is if we take these preventive care measures, whether it be diabetes, colonoscopy, all the different services that were mentioned on the screen today, if we can encourage people to get out there, the key here is let's take care of you before you get sick. Let's see the doctor before you have to go to the hospital or have some kind of surgical procedure. So our initiative here and with Healthfirst is constant education, just persistent and inexorably getting out there, getting the message out as much as we can so that people in this room like yourself can help spread that message. I hope that helps answer your question a bit. I know it's kind of, long-winded and not as, to the point maybe as we need, but it's an ongoing process. We're not reinventing the wheel. It's really, we're just trying to, through trial and error, get our message out there and see what resonates with our communities.
I think one important thing that, oh, sorry.
Can everyone hear me? Because I really dislike mics, but okay. So the mental health portion, within the Bronx, we do have some geriatric clinics here for mental health, and we also have a program called Pearl. So it's a 12-week session for either in the home or over telephonic, where you can receive counseling services for this beautiful word that I love so much, which is free. Free, 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 free. So the only thing that is required that you have to be over the age of 55, not 60 for the Pearls program. And we do have some flyers and contact information there. Now, health is very, very crucial, but the mind is just as important, and making sure that that is centered. And even my grandmother, who is 96, by the way, a Bajan, right, living here, right, 96, no longer diabetic. I wanted to point that out before the end of the night. Also receives mental health counseling in her home to talk about loss and grief, right? She's the oldest out of 7 children, and a lot of her siblings have passed away. And even at 96, she's able to understand that her mind has to be well for her to keep going, moving forward. So if I can't express that more enough, especially in the Caribbean and especially of a West Indian heritage, that your mind and your soul have to be healthy. And yes, God leads you here, but he also leads you in different places of this world and providers to help serve you and your needs. So please ensure that you get therapy and mental health counseling if needed, okay?
Lastly, in addition to what has been said and the question you asked about the immigrants, right, undocumented. So we have some undocumented coming here, they have children. Regardless of what their status is, the children are qualified, or their kids are qualified. And we have some other people coming in with a green card, so maybe they'll be thinking maybe they're not qualified for health insurance. They do qualify for EP programs that we have. And lastly, our vice president mentioned something about partnership. No one can do this alone. So health and wellness and the public safety is a shared responsibility. We know you have an organization. We are very open. That's why we're here today. That's why we have the faith-based. That's why we have the faith leaders to help us know. We work together with them. So if you want to partner with us, we are very open. We'd love to partner with you. We cannot do it all by ourselves. So we're open to partnership.
And lastly, we at Healthfirst, we really do believe that healthcare is a right and not a privilege, but we can't do it alone. If you know your political representatives, please reach out to them with issues like you're mentioning, that there's a lack of healthcare for the undocumented, and vote, because it's important that the people that are representing you know the issues you're facing and help address solutions.